Welcome to Fourth Form Latin. This is Lesson 9. We'll be covering the demonstrative pronouns. Let's begin with the prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum,
benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris Iesus. Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Okay. So this week we are going to go over those Latin sayings. So again, if you need to have a quick refresher, be sure to open your back of your book, page 99 back there, and remember it lists them in order just in case you lose your place. So, all right. So Dominic, I believe in one God. Anthony, I sing of arms and men.
Arma verum quae cano.
Excellent. All right. Kevin, esteem is the reward of virtue.
Honor virtutis premium.
Excellent. Dominic, let others wage war.
You're not the Ali belly.
Good. And Anthony, into the middle of things.
In medias res.
Good. Kevin, what should I do in Rome?
Quid Rome faciam.
Very good. And Dominic, that is?
Id est.
Yes, and this week on the test, you're going to also need to know not only id est, but also the fact that it's IE. You're going to need to know the abbreviation as well, okay? Which that's pretty easy. If you know id est, you're going to know the abbreviation for id est is IE. Right? Okay. Now, let's open our books to page 30. And let's cover the Latin saying for this week, which is hail and farewell. Okay? So they're the final words of a poem by the Roman poet Catullus. So he's a contemporary of Virgil, and he is famous, or most famous, for his poems about love, but he wrote about other subjects as well. One poem in particular concerns the death of his brother. It is to Catullus that he's standing by the tomb, and he is addressing, obviously, his brother with these very poignant words. So, atque in perpetuum frater ave atque vale. So, and forever, brother, hail and farewell. Very famous. So, ave, that's obviously the singular imperative. It's coming from the verb avo, avere. And then we have atque. This is a conjunction, which means and we're going to go over the different ways you can say and what's the difference between each one. Because remember, we now have atque, we had et, and then, so anyway, we're going to cover that a little bit later on. And then we have vale, from valeo, valere, which is the verb meaning to be strong or to be well. So ave atque vale, hail and farewell. All right, so let's flip to the back of our books. On page 131, 132, and let's go over some of the grammar. Okay, so the first one we're going to read is about, it says 19, but we're going to go to 20. Okay, so this is the top of page 120, 132 rather. So you have the different ways of saying this and that, or that, or I'm sorry, that and those, this and these, okay? So notice that that and those, is, ea, id, is non-specific. Okay, so again, if you're following along, this is the top of page 132. Number 20, these are the uses of the 4 Latin demonstratives, okay? So, and then you have hic, haec, hoc. That means this and these. So in other words, a specific article which is near to the speaker. So for example, this mouse, these books that are near me. Okay, notice how that's much more specific than that and those. Okay, that kind of implies farther away and not as specific. Okay, and then you have ilay, ala, alud. Again, that means that and those. It's specifically, but it's remote from the speaker, so it's farther away. So same. So it's kind of similar to and yet opposite from hic, hoc. So again, specific, but near the speaker, hic, hoc. Specific, but farther away from the speaker, ilay, ila, alud. And then finally we have iste, esta, estud, that and those. So it is near the person that's being spoken to, or it's spoken like they're using it in contempt, like, oh, that boy, you know, notice that there's a little bit of contempt, you know, oh, that child, you know, we even do that in English, right? So anyway, okay, maybe you guys don't do that when you speak, but usually parents sometimes get their patience tested. Okay, all right, so now that we've looked at this, I'm going to ask you guys some questions about this, and we're going to fill in, answer these questions to see how well you were paying attention. So Dominic, how would you translate hic, hac, and hoc?
This leads.
Good. And Anthony, so the rest of the demonstratives, is, ea, id, ilay, ala, alud, and iste, esta, estud, are all translated how?
That, those.
Yep. Okay. And then the tricky part of the demonstratives, as we just went over, is that there are 3 different options for saying that and those. So to pick the right one, you have to pay attention as to whether the object is remote from the speaker. So farther away, that's ilay. If it's near the speaker, the person spoken, iste, esta, estud, or if it's non-specific, which is your is, ea, id. So we're going to do a little exercise here with these sentences right here. And you are going to translate the that or the these or the those or the this. You're going to tell me which one you're going to use, whether you're going to use hic, ilay, iste, or is in these sentences, okay? So I'm going to start with Kevin. So that plant near you is beautiful. So how would you translate that in this sentence?
Ilay.
Well, okay, so it's near. Okay.
Oh.
Near, but is it specific?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of non-specific.
Oh.
So this one would be iste. It's okay. It's okay. You know, we're all learning. It's good. It's good. In fact, you know, I make mistakes all the time that you guys very kindly overlook. So it's good. It's good because then we learn something from it, right? It's good. All right. So these books, Dominic, right, it would be hic because it's near the speaker. Okay. All right. And then, Anthony, I planted those trees outside.
Iste, id.
Right. Well, not is, id, because it's
Or
remote
ilay, ala, alud.
from the speaker. This one would be ilay. Okay, so let me start putting the reasons for each of these out to the side here. So this would be the fact that it is remote from the speaker. Notice it's remote from the speaker. This one, the reason for using hic is it was near the speaker. And then this one is near the person who was spoken to. So notice that, see the near you. Okay. See this one, these books in my arms. So these are kind of like little hints. Okay. Those trees outside. Okay, so these are little hints within the sentence. All right. So who was I on? Oh, now it's Kevin's turn again. So Kevin, I love this apple I'm eating. Okay. So obviously, first question you need to ask yourself, is it near the person who is speaking?
Oh, yeah, definitely near.
Yes. And it's obviously a specific apple that he's eating. So it's near and it's specific. So it is.
Este. Wait, no.
So let's go back up here. Let's see.
No, quiet.
Okay, so remember up here, see?
Oh, so it's hick.
Yep, this is a hick. This is a hick. Exactly. So I'm going to put that near the speaker. And obviously this is specific. Okay. All right. All right, so Dominic, this one.
LA.
So this one is LA. And why is it LA?
Because it's across the room.
So it's far from the speaker. Right, exactly. So is this starting to become a little more clear to you guys? All right, so Anthony, this one. Do you remember that vacation?
Say a id because it's non-specific.
Exactly. Non-specific. Yep. It's a non-specific one. We'll type location. It's a non-specific vacation, either one. And then let's see, we are to Kevin. Those terrible termites ate my wood. So the hint here is in the terrible termites. I'll give you a hint. Is it being spoken of with affection?
Oh, no. Oh,
No.
so it'd be content, so it'd be este.
Yep, it's stay here. So yes, contempt. Contempt for those termites. All right. This is actually even more confusing in English than it is in Latin, okay? So when we see in Latin, Latin and those earlier languages like Greek, they're very specific in using these different words, which is why all the time in English papers, well, I don't know, maybe you've been marked down for using this, and they'll circle and they'll put unclear reference, right? Well, this is why, because they have no idea what you're referring to. So when translating from Latin to English, just remember that if you see a form of hic, translate it as this or these. If you see any of the other demonstratives, ille, illa, illud, it's going to be translated as that or those. But I will tell you what, just remember, try to get these differences down. Why? Because I have great hopes for you guys to translate works of the early fathers, also works like of St. Robert Bellarmine. There's a lot of stuff, especially Robert Bellarmine, which apologetically has never been translated into English, okay? And the thing is we live in a Protestant country, right? And as Catholics, remember the time of the Protestant Reformation, St. Robert Bellarmine and these other guys wrote, and they addressed a lot of the doctrinal concerns of the Protestants, okay? So it would be a great use here in this country to have those works translated. So I kind of rely on you guys to get this down. I see myself as raising the next generation of translators that will be of great use to the church. You'll be known as the three who translated the works, you know, Saint Kevin of Bristow, who translated the works of Saint Robert Bellarmine. You know, that's awesome. Anyway, just something to think about. Had to do a good plug for it. But anyway, so now we're going to go back. Let's flip back and let's read number 21. Back there. All right. So we've already learned that is a id as the third person pronoun. Okay. It also functions as the non-specific with respect to location, demonstrative adjective, meaning that or those. That and those without reference to location, more just to reference something. Is puer est fortis. That boy is brave. Notice there's no, it's non-specific. Okay. In other words, in eos milites impetuum facit, he made an attack on those soldiers. Okay. So again, the those is non-specific. Those soldiers. Which soldiers? I don't know which ones you're talking about. Okay. So let's look at these right here. Dominic, what does ille puer latus est mean? Can you translate that for me?
That boy is
Happy. Okay. Now, Anthony, why doesn't this sentence mean that famous boy is happy?
Because celebrator is not even in the sentence.
Well, remember, placement means everything. So in this case, it's because delay does, I'm going to put this, does not follow the noun. Okay. So now we're going to translate this. So now that we have just touched on that. So Kevin, knowing that piece of information, how would you translate vir ille superbus erat? Notice the placement of ille. It does follow the noun. So in this case, what?
If the man was powerful.
Well, the famous
Oh, the famous man
was
powerful.
well. Remember Tarquinius Superbus. What?
Oh, proud.
It wasn't mean that he was proud. Oops! I just gave the answer.
Proud.
Did you say proud? You would be
Yeah.
correct. Very good. So there we have it. So in this case, the placement of ille is the difference between that boy is happy. When it comes before the noun, it is modified. And when it comes afterwards, it means famous. Okay? All right. Now let's go back to numbers 41, 40, 41, 45, and 46. Okay? So here we go. So we're at the bottom of page 134 if you're following along. So let's talk about clauses. Okay? So a clause is part of a sentence that has a subject and a predicate. And if a clause expresses a complete thought and removed from the sentence, it is in an independent clause. If it cannot stand alone as a complete thought, it is a subordinate clause. Okay? So that's what they're talking about right there. Let's flip over to your actual textbook right there and go over that information right there in the middle of page 30. So again, what did we just cover? There are two types of clauses, independent and subordinate. An independent clause can stand alone as a complete thought. So for example, they defend the city and a tribe attacks it. So notice there are two different independent clauses in this compound sentence. They defend the city and a tribe attacks it. Okay, so yeah, those are both independent clauses. Now let's look at the subordinate clause. A subordinate clause cannot stand alone as complete thought. So notice, they defend the city because a tribe attacks it. Notice, because a tribe attacks it is not a complete thought, whereas they defend the city is a complete thought. So this is what is known as a complex sentence. A complex sentence is made up of a independent clause, they defend the city, and a subordinate clause, because a tribe attacks it. Okay? Okay, now notice the two examples of subordinate clauses are purpose clauses. So you notice there is a quod here, right here at the beginning. This is going to be a signal in Latin, okay? So clauses beginning with quod, yeah, those are going to be your subordinate clauses, which we're going to go into that in a little bit. So flipping back to page 134. So quod is a conjunction. Remember, conjunction like but or and, okay? It's a conjunction that introduces a subordinate clause and joins it to the main clause. Okay, good. Anybody have any questions on that? No? Okay.
Why is changing it from and to because changing?
It's not. It's not. It's just that this is going to be, quod is going to be a specific type of clause. It's an indicator. But and is a coordinating conjunction. Because is more of, I forget if it's adverbial. I'm forgetting my English grammar. But, you know, things like although this, I believe those are called adverbial words, which when you put them at the beginning of a clause like this, like for example, if we were to put the because over here, it would make this a subjunctive clause. Have you noticed that? Whereas and links to things. It's a different type of a conjunction. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, so you're taking into account the because part.
Right.
Because a tribe attacks is not a complete thought, but a tribe attacks it is.
Right. But look, even if you were to do and a tribe attacks it, that would still be a complete thought. But here, when you say because a tribe attacks it, what do you notice?
You want to know why it's
exactly
because.
There's that thought. The rest of the thought is missing. Okay.
Okay.
So you notice that and here, even adding and to this second part, does not change whether or not a tribe attacks it is complete. But because does. Do we notice that?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, there's lots of words like that, you know, as, since, you know, since the tribe attacked, or although the tribe attacked. So there's lots of words that we have like that in English. Okay. If you have ever taken an IEW class, these are usually fall into the category of what? Asia B, right? You guys remember, did anybody take an IEW class?
I was taking something similar, and basically what it was saying is that it gives a list of all these words that are clause words.
Exactly, exactly.
And so that would be in the list, but it doesn't.
Asia B, I mean, what do we mean? as, since,
Yeah.
if,
Although,
although, that's right,
because.
and because. So when you see these words, these pretty much tip you off that, hey, you know what? What's coming up? I'm the beginning of a subjunctive clause, or not subjunctive, but subordinate clause. Those are like little red flags thrown out there. Okay.
Okay.
Did I just confuse anyone, or does that make sense?
No, I was just interested in why changing one word
Well,
changes.
that's a good question. That's a good question. I just want to make sure that I haven't confused anyone. Kevin, are we good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now, let's move right along to the next grammar thing that we are supposed to cover, which is namely, okay, so let's go over this. So now that we've read that, what does, okay, here we go. Let's read 45 through 46. So this is about the imperative. So and this is over there on page 135. So the imperative mood is used for what, guys? What is the
Commands.
imperative? What did you say? Commands? You're correct. So the understood command, subject of a command is what?
You or you all.
You all, exactly. So good, we have imperatives now. Now let's look at the subjunctive. So subjunctive mood is used for what kind of actions, guys?
Potential.
Potential.
Potential actions such as opinions, purpose, wishes, etc. Okay, so it's used for a whole lot of things, but the ones that we remember we've learned are purpose clause, like the hortatory let, that implies this kind of a wish. Okay, or opinions. So as well as several others that we're going to learn. But the point is there for potential actions. So it expresses the activity that is potential. In other words, existing in the imagination. And remember, to form the negative of a subjunctive verb, what do we use? We don't use non, we use nay. That's correct. Okay. So, all right. Now that we've gone over that, let's answer some questions. So, Dominic, what does ut mean?
In order that, then.
Or so that, right? So that. Okay. So, Anthony, in a sentence with a purpose clause, the verb in the independent clause, in other words, the verb that comes before the ut, will always be in what mood?
Indicative.
Very good. And Kevin, so the verb in the subordinate clause, in other words, the verb that comes after the ut, will always be in what mood?
Subjunctive.
Subjunctive. It's always going to be that way. Indicative first, and then after the ut, subjunctive. Okay? So Dominic, the subjunctive verb in the purpose clause will either be subjunctive, present subjunctive, or imperative subjunctive, depending on the independent clause. So when will the subordinate clause verb be present? Do you remember when? Well, remember, so if the verb in the independent clause is present, remember this, future or future perfect, remember?
No.
Okay, so that's when it's going to be the subordinate clause verb will be, when I'm in pretty equal, present. Okay, so if you have dependent, okay, I'm going to abbreviate this so that we fit. So if it's in the present tense, if it's in the future tense, if it's in the future perfect, which again, I'm going to abbreviate this, then your subordinate clause verb will be in the present. So, Anthony, when will it be imperfect in the subordinate clause?
If the independent clause verb is in the imperfect, perfect, pluperfect.
Clause equals, you're right. So imperfect. So again, I'm going to abbreviate perfect or imperfect. Okay?
No. I already gave him more than enough.
So in other words, when the independent clause has kind of a past tense thing going on, you know, well, we would call it past tense in English. Obviously, the imperfect, we don't have really anything like that in English. Okay? So let's go ahead and flip back and read number 47. Okay, we did read that one. I'm sorry. So we did read about nay instead of non. So Kevin, now that we remembered the rules for the tenses, let's go ahead and translate some sentences. So can you do this first one for me? So the farmer will have worked in order that he may give. So the farmer.
Agricola.
Okay. Will have worked.
Laboravit.
Well, what about the have, though?
Oh. Laboravit. No,
Laboravit.
laboravit.
Good. Okay, now in order that, so how would you do that part? You said ut, good. He may give. So we said that this was what? Future perfect. So what tense is your he may give going to be?
Present.
Present subjunctive. So put it, he may give in the present subjunctive.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Good. I'm going to put this in bold so that everybody sees this is the answer. All right. So Dominic, the soldiers were preparing so that they might not fear.
Milites. Parabant. Ut.
Well, is it ut? I see this so that, but don't forget there's this little not hiding in here. So yes, in this case, it would be nay. So that not, whenever you see so that not, that automatically should trigger you to think nay. Okay? So, well, what tense is parabant? Imperfect. So we said if it's in the imperfect, in the independent clause, then it's going to be, see, it's imperfect here, so that it's going to be what in the dependent clause? Well, but make it subjunctive. Remember, in order to form the imperfect subjunctive, you need to use the infinitive. And then make it plural. Well, rent. Remember? Good. Very good. Okay. All right. So we've worked through that. Okay. So we have done those. Now, the thing that I wanted to go over with you guys, which were not covered in those grammar things, were direct quotations. Okay, so direct quotations right there at the top of page 31. So Romans didn't have quotation marks. Okay, so they used the verb inquit, he or she said, to indicate a direct quotation. Inquit is always placed inside the quotation and never before it. Okay. See, so for example, right here, notice, and what they mean inside the quotation. So there's going to be a quotation before, and then you're going to have a quotation afterwards. But notice, like we in English probably would have done nuntius inquit, and then all of this. Yeah, that's not the way they did it. Okay, so nuntius agmen inquit tergo o pugnatur. Pugnatur, I'm sorry. So, but literally we would translate, we do nuntius, the messenger, and then we grab inquit, said, and then what did he say? He said, augment a tergo a pugnatur. Okay, so the army on the march is being attacked from the rear. Okay, so that's what that little note is there. Okay, so let's look over your when in Rome, how did the Romans say that? So with tribunus, when you have tribunus with militum, so you say a military tribune. So it's literally a tribune of soldiers, obviously, when you have those two together. So obviously, so let's go over this example. So tribuni militum in munitione sunt. So the military tribunes are in the fortification. Okay, so again, remember when you see these two side by side, translate it as military tribune or military tribunes. Okay, and vice versa. If you see military tribunes, you're going to need to know to go to this. Okay. All right, let's go over the vocabulary words. Okay. All right. So here we go. So Dominic, can you take these first three for me, please?
Aquae and my or neque.
Neque.
Neque, nor, and not either nor.
Right. So if you see, obviously, neque, that's a coordinating conjunction going on there, and you're going to use neither nor, right? If you see neque by itself, it's either going to be nor or and not, okay? So obviously, just look for it in the sentence. So, all right, these next three are, you know what, take the next four, Anthony. Anthony?
Undeque from on all sides, vehementer, greatly or violently, ave hail, of fronte, inner, from the front.
Right. Good. And then Kevin, these last four, please.
Tergo, either from the near. In principio, in the beginning. In secula, seculorum, forever, without end.
Mm-hmm.
Prima luce, at dawn.
Right. Okay, so good. You know, the thing that I wanted you guys to notice, the vocabulary is very easy this month. It is what it is. There's no genitive to memorize. There's no principal parts. It's just very simple this week. You know, it's very, very simple this week. Okay, so let's look at the notes that they gave for us right there in the middle of page 31. Okay. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we have all these different words for and. So how do you know when to use et, when to use the que, when to use atque? Well, you use et to connect words or clauses when nothing special is implied about them. So look at that, i.e., that is, id est, that is, they're words with no special relation. That's when you use et, when your words have no special relation. So an example of that, the Romans and the Gauls are fighting. No special relationship between the Romans and the Gauls, okay? They're just two words being connected, okay? Next bullet point. So use que, that enclitic, to join two things that are similar or parallel in meaning. So for example, the soldiers defend their wives and children. Notice there's a parallel, there's a similarity in meaning, so they're using a que there. Okay, so whose wives and children? Their wives and children. There's kind of a group idea going on there. And then you use atque to emphasize the word or clause that comes after atque. Okay, so for example, the hail and farewell, ave atque vale. So hail and farewell. Farewell is what is being emphasized. Okay, does that, you guys have any questions there? No? All right, well then let's go to, open your Henley book to page 231, please. Let's go over some of this homework that you guys are going to be covering this week. So number 1, Dominic. Frumentum in castra a servis portator ne in opia frumenti sit. So how would you translate that?
The grain in the camp.
Well, grab your verb. Look to your verb. The grain.
Was being carried.
So yes, is being carried, right? Because it's sit. So is being carried.
From the camp.
Well, not from into
the camp by slaves.
By the slaves. Now do the nay. So always a good rule with Latin is always this, when you get to a verb right here, this is what you, this is, it means all of this goes together. They have this kind of rule like blah, 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 verb. That's where that clause ends. And then, so when you get to here, from here on, it kind of tells you that all of this, ne in opia frumentum sit, all of this is going to go together, okay? So just do one clause at a time. Okay, so run on until you see a verb and then assess the rest of the sentence, okay? So they were being carried into, the grain is being carried into the camp by slaves, nay, well, so that, or in order
that we are not out of grain.
That there may not be a scarcity of grain, or yeah, a lack of grain, in order that there not be a lack or scarcity of grain. So good. All right, Anthony. Number 2.
Continente.
Okay, so again, what do we have? This nay here, it looks a little weird, but until you remember, this nay is simply an enclitic being tacked on to tell you, hey, I'm a sentence. So chop off that nay and you get the verb, okay, which in this case, we're going to do this all the way until you see the ut, right? And then you're going to do the ut all the way to the end. Okay?
Okay.
Whenever you see the ut that says, I'm the beginning of a new dependent clause, okay? So if in the case of like a sentence, the verb is going to come first like this, just look to see if there's some kind of break in the sentence, like an ut or a nay. Okay? All right. So go ahead.
Lest we restrain the soldiers in the camps.
So is he holding the soldiers in camp?
Oh, it's question. Okay. So that he may see,
Expect, wait, Wait for
Or
Novas Kopios.
new forces.
Yeah, our new troops. Very good. All right, Kevin. So we're going through, we're looking, and we go, aha, here it is, venit. That's a verb. We're going to break there, and it also comes before a ut, so we know we got it right. So that means that all this be translated together. And what does that mean? That means, again, ut. That's the beginning of an ut. That's why they call it an ut clause. All the way to the verb, that means to the end. So it's going to kind of go like that. So go ahead.
He has conquered in the field of the enemies. So that
Did I type that right? I think maybe I typed that incorrectly. Let me check the book. So that's page 231. See, I think I probably made a mistake. See, I make mistakes all the time. Look at what I'm doing.
great.
Did I take that correctly?
It looks the same to me.
They need, okay. Okay, so he conquered.
In the fields of the enemies.
In the fields of the enemy.
So that he may frighten
Frighten or terrify.
them.
Yep, exactly right. Very good. Okay. All right, and so Dominic, this one. So again, we're gonna.
The Gauls are fighting.
Okay, I think you know how it goes. So the Gauls. You said are fighting. Diu et acriter.
Miserably.
Well, right, that's the bitterly, yeah, but diu. So this is kind of the idea of long and bitterly. Nay.
So that the Romans may not.
Incendant.
Burn their grain.
Burn
Grain.
the grain. Right. Okay, so again, just so that you guys know, I'm going to make this little note here in case you run it off. Nay can equal so that not, or sometimes you'll see them say lest this happen. So lest is kind of the same idea as so that not. So if you see them write in English lest, that means you're going to translate nay. You guys see how lest has that same idea as so that not. So for example, this one, this could also be translated or, oops. The Gauls are fighting long and bitterly, lest the Romans burn the grain. Okay? Those mean the same thing. Okay? But I'm making this note just so that it won't throw you. If you see in English lest, you know, okay, that's the same as so that not. That means I need a nay. Okay? All right, turn over to page 238. And let's handle exercise 256. So, Anthony, you're up first. Right, that's right.
Caesar
Caesar.
Expected.
Well, do sepe, because remember, sepe is an adverb, and whenever you have
Oh.
adverbs usually come, notice usually is an adverb right before the verb.
Yeah. Okay. Often. Expected.
Yep.
New legions and.
Well, wait a minute. New et integras. New and
New and whole,
fresh
fresh legions, so that he may conquer the enemy easily.
that he would. Yeah, remember the imperfect is more like he would or might.
Oh, so that he would conquer the enemy
Make sure
easily.
to, because this is imperfect, we really want to try to capture the sense of that imperfect in your translation. And then you said easily. All right, Kevin, number 2.
The Gauls have fortified the town walls.
Vallo Alto. So notice both of those are in what case, Kevin?
Ablative.
Ablative. So, and it's an ablative that is hanging out there without a preposition. So what construction could that be? Which ablative does not use a preposition?
Ablative of means.
Very good. So we're going to do by means of alto, vallo.
A tall wall
Yep, a high wall.
and wide.
That's a ditch.
Okay.
And a wide ditch. So good.
So that the Romans
Remember that nay is that so that not, so that the Romans not expugnare.
attack them.
Well, it's more like, yeah, it's got, so opugno is attack, but expugnerant. So obviously, yeah, it's storm, should not storm. So would or should
Oh,
not.
not storm them.
Well, kind of like take, yeah, so like kind of like take it by storm. It's kind of a weird verb. It's one of those in the back. So that they would not, should not take it by storm. Okay. I like should better, so I'm going to put should in here. Should not take it by storm. All right, Dominic.
The lieutenant address.
I love it. Called.
The centurions and tribune.
Right. This is the example we were talking about in class. You have tribune.
Tribunal soldiers.
So the military tribunes.
Military tribune.
So we called upon the military tribunes. We said the centurions and military tribunes.
So that they may fight long and bravely.
Very good. Good. All right. Anthony.
Is Hannibal
Oh,
leading?
well, this is, well, it would be did because it's
Oh,
it's
Yeah.
perfect. So, well, you could do has as well. So remember, you could do has led or did lead.
did Hannibal
So
lead all his troops across the wide rivers and over the high mountains so that he may wage war with the Romans in Italy? Oh, might, right. Because it's imperfect.
Good, excellent. You guys are doing very well. Okay, good. So let's cover this. So early Rome. So again, a little bit of a review of Roman history here. So Romulus, who's the founder of Rome, invited Rome's neighbors, the Sabines, to a festival at which the Romans, who had a shortage of marriageable women, then they carried them off. They carried off the Sabine women. So they invited them to a festival so that they could steal their women, essentially. So Tarpeia, this person, betrayed the capital to the Sabines, believing that she would be given a large reward in jewelry. Instead, she was crushed to death. Her body was thrown from a rock in the center of Rome, which forever afterwards was called the Tarpeian Rock. So obviously she was a traitor. So she got thrown off and she was crushed to death. So it was the place from which traitors were thrown to their death. So at the very beginning of the Republic, when Rome was at war with the Etruscan generals Lars Porsena and Gaius Mucius, so those two guys attempted to sneak into Porsena's camp and kill him. He failed in his mission, and when brought before Porsena, he showed that the Romans had no fear of pain when their country was at stake by thrusting his right hand onto a burning brazier. Because his hand was damaged beyond use, he became known to the Romans as Mucius Scaevola. So Mucius the left-handed. Okay. So man, that guy was a beast. Can you imagine that? I have no fear. I'm gonna just like totally burn my hand. You know? Ugh. Whoa, that's intense. So the Gauls then sacked Rome in 390 BC. And then you guys know the story of Spartacus, who was the very famous gladiator who escaped. And he led a force of slaves in an uprising during which he was defeated by 5 Roman armies. So yeah, it took 5 Roman armies to bring him down. And then you have the Gracchi brothers, sons of Cornelia, who fought in the Punic Wars and served as tribunes, championed land reform, and were both assassinated. Okay, now let's talk about the Punic Wars. So Rome's first province was Sicily. It was won from Carthage in the First Punic War. As a result of its victory in the 3 Punic Wars, Rome eventually won control of 3 major islands off the coast of Italy. So it won control of Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica. As a result of the Punic Wars, Rome also gained control of much of Spain and North Africa. During the winter of 218 to 217 BC, Hannibal crossed the Alps into northern Italy. Remember his famous crossing with the elephants over those Alps. Hannibal was later quoted as saying, "Having invaded Italy, I crushed 3 Roman armies in 1 year. My goal was to bring Rome's allies over to my side and thus defeat the Romans once and for all." Hannibal's 2 major victories against the Romans were at Lake Trasimene and Cannae. Cannae was Rome's worst defeat in its history. So Hannibal was eventually defeated in 202 BC by Scipio Africanus in Zama in northern Africa, which Zama is southwest of Carthage. He was eventually destroyed, Scipio that is, eventually destroyed Carthage completely. So in other words, they were tired of going to war with these people. You're just done, we're done with you. So he just destroyed it. All right, this week for lesson 9, you will be pleased to know that it is an extremely short test. So just those few vocabulary right there on page 30. And then there is one grammar question, which I sent to you in an email last night. You need to be able to translate, I think it's only one sentence from Latin to English. Of course, the Latin saying is very, very easy. You need to be able to decline hic, haec, hoc. You need to be able to conjugate co, loco, and the subjunctive active, okay? And then you answer about 5 questions on early Rome and the Punic Wars handout also, which was included in that email. So are there any questions at this time? All right, well, if you think of any, shoot me an email during the week. Other than that, I will see you guys. I will see you guys later. All right.